usually happens is that a week or so before, maybe even a few weeks before, a certain process begins to happen, which I call kind of the download period. It's when the larger energies, larger spirits, if you will, begin to tell me what they want. Main proposition that is coming through here is that truth comes through a process of stress. You know that there's good stress and there's bad stress. It's truth. When truth comes through this process of stress, like a stress test, that's how you know what is. So it's like part of the scientific process where you stress something and see what is there. Now, the environment of the desert has this quality. It is a severe environment. It is an environment that is about testing. It's an environment that forces in the core resources. It's like everything about the desert, the plants, the animals, the rocks, every aspect is oriented towards survival. So it's all being kind of stressed to facilitate survival. So there's something special, there's something magical about the environment that has a quality of bringing out your truth, the truth of your soul. There's something about the plants, the sky, the sun, the wind, the terrain, the environment, the synergy, the combination of the severe qualities of the sun, the heat, with the plants, the prickly nature of the plants, the survival instincts of the animals, that is about forcing your soul, your spirit to emerge, to come to the fore. There is a quality in the desert that has always drawn mystics to it in order to know themselves, in order to see who they are and what they're made of. So it's the source of inspiration. There's a certain purity and a certain clarity that is facilitated by that. Designed to kind of get us in touch with that particular spirit of the desert. And so what I'd like you to do is to just let yourselves be comfortable, and if you'd like, put your feet flat on the floor. And let your body relax. And And simply notice your breathing, notice the energy of your body, the rhythm of your heart, the rhythm of your breath. And as you're feeling very centered and very relaxed, we call forth the energy and the vibration of the sun. Is there any question? Yes,
Just from a practical aspect, I think you said that you sleep in tents
yes.
in the desert.
Yes.
So is that safe? Oh, you mentioned reptiles.
Yes, you asked if it's safe to sleep in tents in the desert. Yes, it is. It is completely safe. I've slept in many tents. I've had friends and groups that have slept in tents in this particular desert, and it is quite safe. I mentioned snakes, but actually I've been going to the desert that I like to go to for about 15 years now, and I've never actually seen a snake on the desert floor. Once, maybe about 10 years ago, on the drive back, we saw one snake crossing the road. But that was about it. So it's, I would say that it's safe to say that it's a non-issue. It is perfectly safe, and it's very lovely. Very often when I go out to the desert, I often don't even use a tent. I just sleep under the sky. And so I've done both, and it's very, very wonderful. Is there another question?
Is there any preparation?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the desert, it's a very harsh environment, and it's the heat is the biggest, most immediate danger, and so you really have to very consciously prepare for it, and which means bring lots of water, bring things with salt or salt tablets even. Prepare to. I like to arrive in the mid to late afternoon, so that we have the cooler times of the day to kind of hang out and prepare, and then you have the evening, and then it's usually fine. But you always take plenty of water, always a little more water than you think you need, and we always bring cell phones and don't really go too far from the main road, so it's very safe in that respect.
So there's a connection.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. And with doing this particular kind of spiritual adventure, it's always good to always think it through and to really consider and respect the environment that you're engaging with, because it's a very strong, it's a very alive kind of environment. When you go there, every time I go to the desert, I always learn something extraordinary. There's always something about the spirit of it that actually directly instructs me on some aspect of my life. Okay, meaning that it speaks. Okay, so when I take people into the desert, when I go into the desert, there are certain kinds of processes and rituals and attitudes that I learned to kind of cultivate in terms of engaging with it, so that message, that spirit that I alluded to before, that the teaching about survival gets shared with me by the desert, by the spirit of the desert itself. Okay, it requires maybe a little bit of meditation, a little bit of ritual, a little bit of keen observation, but the desert always speaks. You see, because what we are experiencing and what we're encountering is something that is alive. It's a living environment, meaning that all of the different aspects of the environment, sun, wind, plants, the weather, the rain, the earth, the rocks, everything together creates a certain synergy of life. It's a living environment that will speak to you. You see. Once, speaking of tents, I was sleeping on the desert floor and by myself, actually. And it was in the middle of the night, and there was a lot of wind happening. And so what I began to do quite spontaneously was use the desert itself as a kind of a divinational tool. Meaning that I would put a question out, put a question out to the desert. And then the wind would answer. So you see, so it got very specific in terms of the interaction and the dialogue. That the wind itself, the shaking of the tent, would be a particular answer to the questions that I had. There are always amazing stories that come out of the desert. And in the experience of the desert, one thing that tends to happen is that the experience of synchronicity becomes amplified. Okay? It becomes amplified to the degree that the environment itself becomes utterly magical. Meaning that as you put a thought out there, it's like, I would like to see this, or I'd like this to happen, or I wish something else would go, this, that, or the other would go on. You get to the point where the response is almost immediate. It happens very, very directly. And so there's a quality of alignment when you relate to it, when you cultivate the relationship with that land, in which it begins to address and respond to you quite directly. Meaning that there have been instances where we've been able to kind of consciously direct the sandstorms and direct the whirlwinds in the great valleys and make them come to you or make them do things, or shift the clouds in the desert, or bring forth or have certain animals kind of reveal themselves or to show themselves. So it's an environment that has a life and a kind of an intelligence that interacts with you, and it knows you. It's aware when you decide to go there that you're going to arrive there, and it knows that you're going to be there even before you arrive. It's as if the environment itself is prepared to deal with you on a personal level and on an intimate level. It is there to also challenge you. And it's, as I said, it's because of its nature, the kinds of life lessons that we normally have, that we experience in a regular life that are challenging, it tends to bring those about very rapidly. So you could actually go through an extended, what would normally be an extended period of time of challenge in a day or overnight or in a few hours. It has that quality of dealing with you in a particular way. And what I like to do is I like to help people sort of understand and interpret and experience and guide them through how the desert is dealing with them, like how the desert is teaching them. We use certain rituals and meditations and processes that help you make a heart connection with the very environment, so that you create and experience a relationship with it in such a way that your own truth is revealed. Who you are becomes clearer to you, because you see yourself dealing with and responding to this challenging, this rather severe environment. It's as if your cells in the very core of your being recognizes the challenge of it, because it touches an ancient part of yourself. You see what I'm saying? It touches a part of yourself that knows and that has come through this quality and this kind of challenge. It may have an ancestral basis to it. It may have a past life basis to it, but it addresses that very core, that very primal part of yourself that allows you to kind of see and reflect of who you are, see who you actually are. And there are ways, as I said, to directly experience this in a more clear and a more direct and a more rapid way. So, is there any other question? Yes?
So you talk about the power of the environment, just the stressful environment, but to what degree, beyond the nature of it, is it the people who live there or who have thoughts there, who've been
Yes. There's a history of the desert, and there are people that have lived there for thousands of years. There's also species of animals that have lived there for thousands of years. So there's a sense of the spirit, the energetic imprint that's there. You see, the desert it's a conscious and intelligent being, so it has memory. It knows, and one can address it in such a way that it will tell you about the people that were there before. You see, it's programmed. You can think of it almost like a computer with extraordinary memory. If you approach it or just right, it will tell you about the lives, the souls of people who have been there before, and invite you to be part of that narrative. You see, to align with that stream of consciousness, that particular narrative, which is part of the whole survival aspect that it wants to bring to you. You see, these are people and peoples that have understood and survived and thrived successfully within that environment. And the desert, there's a certain collective memory there that one can tap into. Now, this of course, as I said before, is very, very important in terms of this, again, the severity of the kinds of challenges that we're facing now as modern people in the 21st century. That the severity is beginning to kind of match the kinds of severity that the desert embodies. You see, that's why that there's the alchemy of what the desert awakes in us has direct bearing on our lives now. And the importance of this kind of inquiry, the importance of this kind of kind of experience is actually really, I believe, to kind of activate individuals to be able to be guides, not only for themselves, but for the collective community, for the larger community, that as they begin to experience the challenge and the stress and the distress that is happening in the world, then they will be in need of individuals who have been entrained, impressed, initiated in such a way that they are able to be familiar with the stress, the challenge, the distress, and not be locked into a reactive mode, but to be able to handle it. You see, to be able to master that. So this is the importance of having this kind of experience, and why it is something that I feel that nature, the environment, the world has to show us, has to impart to us. So, any thoughts, John?
I think I wanted to ask you a question about the beginning. You talked about like good stress and bad stress.
Yes, yeah.
That just sounded really interesting. Maybe I've never thought that stress could be good, but I kind of get it. Maybe you could just elaborate more on that point.
Okay. Yes, the difference between good stress and bad stress. And this is like a very basic psychological concept in psychology, that there's a stress, like that causes us to grow, that causes us to develop. There's a stress that kind of entrains us. There's stresses that teach us, that there are stresses that cause us to have a clearer sense of ourselves. Again, to force our truth to the surface. Okay, and when that happens, we experience the stress as a positive thing. We might even like and enjoy the stress. Okay, and we feel a sense of accomplishment by engaging in that. So it's usually something that's very conscious. It's something that's very deliberate, and it's known. It's a known stress. Stress that is, a negative stress, or a stress that's not helpful, is the stress that very often catches us by surprise. It's a stress that we experience some distress because we don't know if we can handle it or not. You see, so this causes us to experience some trauma and or damage in association with the stress. This is the sense of the positive payoff. It is, for whatever reason, not accessible. You see, so the idea is to in this particular subject, in this particular area, as a guide in the desert, the quality of the guidance creates a good stress. It creates a stress that has a very wonderful, immediate, positive payoff. You see, and without that kind of guidance, the stress of the desert could be very negative and very insecure. Word, distressing. You see, so what we experience in the world, and what we're experiencing more collectively as a people, and as a nation and as a community, is a creeping sense of negative stress. That it's important for individuals to be able to have the skill, that kind of transformational skill, to transform that negative stress into a positive stress. You see, and that's why I say that this desert environment is like a perfect, exquisitely constructed environment to help us be able to do that, very, very, very naturally. And it is the really kind of the magic of the desert, that it will bring us through that experience in such a way that we know that when we face those similar kinds of things in our regular lifetime, that we can handle it. And I've seen that happen with people that have led through this kind of experience. Even young people that have been able to say that, well, since I've gone through the desert, well, I can certainly handle this situation. You see, and be able to be strong and be present and be clear, be directly because of the lessons. They know how to encounter a challenging environment and not leave, not disassociate, but to deal with it. And that's the gift that I like to bring.
I'd
Yes.
like to talk about the heat.
The heat.
I've
Yes.
been in extreme equatorial heat. It's
Mhm.
different because it's damp,
Yes.
but it's literally mind-altering.
Yes.
My body, just shutting down, moving as little as possible. You become reptilian.
Yes.
And while it was kind of weird at
Mhm.
first as I was going into it, if you don't fight it, kind of roll into it and
Yes.
let that slow down and happen, it was so beautiful and languid, and I kind of experienced the loss of my physical boundaries. I kind of felt kind of fluid with the environment. It was a very interesting experience. I spent a whole day by myself. I was in a kind of a semi-shelter area, so it was okay to be there. And I mean, I just let it all go. I just thought, they'll come and find me eventually. I'm not going to
Yeah.
totally melt here, but I never really felt anything like that.
Yes. There's something about the quality of the heat that does shift your consciousness, and it naturally, as I said, very quickly, very very rapidly, forces a shift in your consciousness. And the thing is that what people often discover is that their body, their psyche themselves, kind of knows how to do this. You see, it calls upon something that's very primal, a very ancient aspect of ourselves. As I said, that comes to the fore. You see, and there's a certain kind of spiritual alchemy that occurs. You see, that when it happens, it's something that you have with you, something that makes an impression. You know that it is within you to bring forth.
And the trust in your body
Exactly.
that is really different after that, because that panic and that initial panic and fight, you don't have to do that because you've already been through an experience where you trusted your body and it was there for you. Didn't
Yes.
know what to do.
Yeah, this is very, very true. And this is why, as I like to say, that mystics and sages have always come to the desert. They've always gone to the desert for that level of contemplation, that level of reflection that you can't really get with the even in other natural environments. I mean, there are wonderful, lovely qualities about rainforests and big forests and the sequoia and all of that. But there's something about the desert. There's something about people that love the desert, that they go for specific things. They go for reasons that are particular and tend to be, I think as serious in a particular kind of way. And so the beauty of it, the beauty of the environment, the beauty of the experience, is not necessarily something that everyone appreciates, or everyone can see. You see, it's something that once you experience it, you see, once you encounter that, you experience that beauty and yourself in it, you interacting with it, that is the initiation. You see, that is what changes you, and you become different in such a way that you carry that into your life and with other people, and you are able to, even within your community, take on certain kinds of strength and roles. That's very important. Yes.
During the meditation, we were focusing on the sun, but I noticed that I became aware of the earth, the inner earth, the root system, the minerals. It has everything. It actually sustains the desert and in consort
Yes.
with the sun, with the elements, with the rain and so on, the wind. And it seems sort of metaphoric with our own body or our own self.
Yes.
That it's in consort,
Mhm.
the external with the internal.
Yes, and that it's an environment that we're accustomed in most other environments. We can see it very easily, the interaction because it's less severe. With the desert, there is some quality about reaching deeper. It's forcing us to reach deeper, and so that sense of what I refer to is that sense of spiritual rigor and focus and strength starts to come forth. It starts to emerge, and in order to find the connection, you see, because it's almost as if it requires faith. You see, it requires faith. It requires certainty, because the deeper root systems and the water systems and the minerals and such. It's like even the plants have to have a certain amount of certainty and faith to go deeper. You see, it's not all like very easy, like fresh fruit that's like right there. You see, it requires a going deeper in a much focused, stronger way. And these are essential, in my opinion, spiritual qualities to have. And that's why that's important. John?
Well, I think I just wanted to ask if somehow I appreciated the way you kind of made a metaphor of the desert in terms of our time now.
Mm-hmm.
It just came to my mind like the Burning Man Festival. I don't know if that's a little comment you would make about that sort of version.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because individuals that have been more on the fringes, not in the mainstream, tend to have a more of appreciation of the power, the transformative power. It's like even the name Burning Man, burning, combustion, transformation. It's alchemical and mysterious and transformative, like vividly transformative. It's about bringing the light of the day into the night and then lighting up the night, kind of thing. So lots of people, but particularly on the margins a little bit more, tend to have this kind of natural or innate kind of connection to it. It's like most people, especially even in the deserts in our area, in our county, when I talk sometimes about going to the desert, a lot of people will say, the face will get all funny and then, what? You want to go where? Why? Why do you want to go there? And because it's thought of as simply wasteland. Barren land, wasteland, there's nothing there. But when I've taken people that have, there, even people who've never gone there, within almost immediately, actually, they're just overwhelmed. They are just like stunned with the environment, the quality of silence that's there. It's like you hear a silence that is so quiet that you hear the roar of the universe underneath it. So there's like a loudness within the silence. You see, and it's quite extraordinary. So you hear things, you see things, you see with that is extraordinary. So is there any other thoughts, questions?
And how long do you go? How many days?
Oh, yeah. I usually, when I take people out, it's usually just overnight. We go in the afternoon, mid-afternoon, maybe get there about 3-ish, 4-ish or so. It's still warm, and then, but it's pleasant enough. Okay. And then we go overnight, and then usually maybe leave the next morning. You see, and that's what kind of the basic Desert Awakening program. But within that, there are, there's rituals, there's processes, there's teaching, there's encounters, there's all kinds of things that cause us to have these kinds of experiences, to tap into that non-ordinary reality, to tap into that aspect that allows us to begin to hear that the voice, that whisper, the roar within the silence, to tap into like the history of it, the peoples that were there. So it becomes a very, very rich kind of experience. You see. So it's just a very short, as I said, it's very rapid. It's just like an afternoon, evening, and a morning overnight, but a great deal happens within that. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for being here. This was wonderful.
Thank you.